In this video you will learn how black can increase the pressure against the d4 point, to destroy the opponent's pawn center. The game began with the moves d4, d6, knight f3, g6. Black wants to develop his king's bishop on the g7 square, where he will be very well placed, since he will occupy the large diagonal of dark squares and exert pressure in the center. c4, bishop g7, e4. Forming a powerful center with his pawns. White has occupied the center, but now black has a clear attacking objective. Black's plan is to attack the opponent's pawn center, to destroy it. Black played bishop g4, developing the queen's bishop and pinning the knight on f3, which is a good defender of the central squares. Bishop e3, developing the queen's bishop and reinforcing the defense of the d4 pawn. Now, black played c5, increasing the pressure against the d4 pawn, taking advantage of the pin along the large diagonal of dark squares. White played knight c3, developing the knight and blocking the large diagonal of dark squares, to avoid the opponent's threats. Black played bishop takes f3, eliminating the white f3 knight, which is a good defender of the d4 pawn, and weakening the white kingside pawns. Weaken the opponent's pawns. Now, it is not possible to capture with the queen because black captures on d4 and gains material. In the game, white recaptured with the pawn, to avoid losing material. Black captured on d4, to destroy the opponent's pawn center. Now, the bishop on g7 is attacked. Black played knight f6, developing the king's knight, defending the bishop on g7 and preparing to castle. White played queen d2. Black played knight c6, completing the development of his minor pieces and attacking the enemy bishop. White responded with bishop e3, to preserve the bishop pair. White retains the bishop pair, but his pawns are very weak on the king side, the position is more or less balanced. Black played knight e5, centralizing the knight and threatening to capture on f3. White completes the development of his minor pieces and defends the f3 pawn, to avoid the opponent's threat. Increasing the pressure against the c4 pawn and preparing to invade with his queen on the weakened kingside. Now, the b3 move would greatly weaken the large diagonal of dark squares. After queen h3, increasing the pressure against the f3 pawn. To defend the f3 pawn. Black has a clear advantage. In the game, white played knight d5, centralizing the knight and anticipating black's threat. White's idea is that it is not possible to capture on c4, since after the changes on c4, white occupies the c-file with his rook and will gain material. In the game, black played knight takes d5, eliminating the white knight, which was a very active piece. Eliminate the enemy's active pieces. Black castled. White castled. Now, black played queen h3, invading with his queen into the opponent's field and threatening to capture the f3 pawn. White reinforces the defense of the f3 pawn. Black played f5, incorporating the pawn into the attack and threatening to capture on e4, with the idea of opening the f-file, which would allow the rook to be incorporated into the attack and further increase the pressure on the f3 point. Now, black threatens to capture the f3 pawn with 3 pieces. White played f4, to defend the f3 pawn. Now the dark knight is attacked. It seems that white is going to push back the black knight and repel black's attack. However, black ignores the threat on his knight and continues his attack against the enemy castling. It is not possible to capture the black knight because the white king will be checkmated. Black has 2 extra pawns and a decisive attack against the white king. In the game, white captured the g5 pawn. Now, the fastest way to win was to capture the g5 pawn with the rook, and the white king quickly receives checkmate. In the game, black played knight f3 check. King h1 is not possible because queen takes h2 is checkmate. In the game, white captured the f3 knight. Black answered bishop e5 and is threatening checkmate. White is completely defenseless, trying to escape with the king. But black makes a typical combination. White resigned, since white cannot avoid checkmate and has to give up his queen.